It's Wizards versus Lesbians, a podcast for your ears. Hello, and welcome to Wizards versus Lesbians. My name's Isaac.
I'm Alexis.
And today we are doing our 8th short fiction roundup. We are discussing 3 short stories. The first one is Another Girl Under the Iron Bell by Angela Liu. The other one is Abstraction is When I Design Giant Death Creatures, and Attraction is When I Do It For You by Claire Jawan. And finally, we have The Name Zia by our favorite Won-Yi Lee.
I was pronouncing it Zia in my head, but...
We don't even get into the ways that those names are pronounced
right.
in that story. Like, it's fraught enough already before we even get to that point.
Well, we do get it. Okay, anyway, we'll save that for when we get to that story.
The theme that links these stories is betrayal. So we are betraying you by abandoning our format and including one story with no lesbians. But we'll still do content warnings. We're not monsters. Violence, gore, sexual abuse, suicide, and our old friend cannibalism in the first one.
So, okay. Another Girl Under the Iron Bell. Are there wizards?
Yes.
Absolutely. Are there lesbians?
No.
No, not at all.
No.
So I guess we're getting this one. Nope, this is extremely heterosexual. So I guess we'll do this one, get this one out of the way before we get to the 2 more lesbian ones. Abstraction, are there wizards?
Ish. Not really.
Yeah, not really. There's giant corporation though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's... And, but boy, are there lesbians.
Yes.
And the name Zia?
I would say that we have some wizards and some lesbians in that one.
I would argue that this is to some degree the story of how the lesbians can be co-opted and turned into wizards.
Yes, 100%.
And the experience of that from the inside.
Weirdly, by that interpretation, our hero becomes a wizard in a process that involves losing her magic, which gets to the interesting place that magic holds in Won-Yi Lee's work. More on that later.
I can't remember how we handle the short fiction format.
We change it every single time we do it. And this is going to be a relatively loosey-goosey one, even by, our normal standards, just because, man, there sure is a lot. It's been a year. It's been a month.
Sure has.
It's been a week. It's been a day.
Yeah. It's just been a lot.
We continue to do this because we're having fun, but man, our brains have taken a beating. So if we miss obvious things or if we sound silly, just go with it. This is what you're getting. This is what we have to offer at this point. Oh boy. All right. But regardless, for our own entertainment, if nothing else, we're going to discuss some short stories.
Let's not even bother with summaries and spoiler zone. I think we should just get into the stories because the short fiction format doesn't quite work with the podcast format.
Not really. And, as far as spoilers go, these are all available online. Links are in the description of the episode. Links are in the Tumblr post. Go ahead and read them.
None of them and they're all under 10,000 words. So
yeah. And frankly, I would recommend reading all of these. I think
these are all good.
All of these are good, which is not always the case, but I think all of these are worth reading.
Well, the theme of this short fiction roundup, there ended up being the sort of inadvertent theme of, I think, co-option and betrayal. But the real theme of this one is just short stories that frequent podcast guest PH Lee keeps pestering me to read and pestering us to cover. So,
yeah, and so
unsurprisingly, they're all good and kind of weird.
We're killing 2 birds with one stone here by respecting Lee's request, who's built up enough guanxi with this podcast to dictate certain things occasionally, and having a nice little episode, even though the first one doesn't have lesbians in it, but we can do the odd departure, of course. So let's talk about this first one. This is a fairy tale retelling, or I don't know if fairy tale is the right word for Kiyohime. It's certainly a
folktale.
It's part of a folktale. Why not? It's part of the grand old tradition of taking a good old folk legend and extracting the bits of it which are personally or emotionally relevant or resonant, and doing a little twist on it. And the twist in this case is that the hero of the story, who is a monster, is an extraordinarily unreliable narrator.
Yes.
And this occasionally makes the story a bit difficult to follow, in a way that verges on, at least for me, verged on getting past the point where this is like a fun artistic choice and more into I don't know what's going on right now. But it does a very good job of reflecting this character's whole deal, which is that she, having been abused, sold down the river, turned out into prostitution, and eventually murdered or committed suicide. That's not clear.
And by she, we mean possibly her or possibly the body that she's in.
Yes, this is a story like Volatile Memory, where we are not entirely sure whether this is the immortal continuation of this person or just another entity with her memories semi-attached to it, which is a theme that I'm seeing more often in science fiction these days, and there's probably something to think about there.
Yeah, I think it's in some ways it's sort of the follow-up to the whole possession thing, which is, I guess, starting to go out of fashion a little bit.
Yeah, the metaphor is identity, but it's also, particularly in this case, trauma, and the way in which serious trauma interrupts one's sense of self. In the style of the classic movie Girl Interrupted. You are forced to reconstrue your personality after things happen to you that are not compatible with the person who you thought you were before, particularly when those things lead you to adopt lifestyle changes like cannibalism.
Mm-hmm. Also, cannibalism, shout out.
Yep, there's cannibalism in this one, so that does make it more wizards versus lesbians, but possibly makes it more wizards versus lesbians than there being lesbians, given the way that things have been going.
In that we're sort of tracking, the zeitgeist. It's certainly more zeitgeisty these days, even than lesbians.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so this is the story of how this demon is enslaved by a monk, and how she escapes that enslavement and gets her revenge on him. But it's also about speaking of possession, the fragment of the one man she ever loved, who she's been carrying around with her after her, and this is after her rebirth as a demon. This, there are more traumas. There are traumas on top of traumas on top of traumas here.
Of course.
And the actual plot is a Byzantine series of nested betrayals. Mm-hmm. Every single character in this book, in this story, either legitimately has plans to kill the person who they're currently being nice to, or our main character thinks that. Our main character thinks that about absolutely everybody, and she's right most of the time, I would say.
Pretty much, yeah.
Although, of course, again, because she's an unreliable narrator, it's not entirely clear how much of her reads on events we are meant to take at face value.
But also, it's pretty clear that everybody is plotting to kill everyone, so... This
is the world that she lives in, and her being this monster is the thing that makes sense for her to be in this world that she lives in a world... And, the story is all about, the capability of loving. And when you have been hurt so badly that you live in a subjective universe where everybody is always out to get you at all times, figuring out what to do with feelings of love is very difficult, which I would say is the theme here. And also, it's one of the reasons why this is a heterosexual book. Okay, I give up. Definition of a book is a story of any length that has been written down somewhere. Because when the curse of heterosexuality has been applied to this character, she lives in a patriarchal society where it seems like most of what happens to women is that they are bought, sold, and then used, either sexually or otherwise. That, being attracted to a man under this under this system seems like a particularly cruel irony, and particularly cruel joke. And that's certainly how our character takes it.
And I think it's worth mentioning that all of the men in this are awful, including the ones who are the ones who she allies with in one way or another, and including the one who is in love with her and she is in love with. Like, he's an executioner slash assassin, who they bond over. He watches her eating a guy in an alley, and he's like, "Is that as tasty as it looks?"
Yeah,
I've always
definitely
wanted to try human blood. So, I mean, to be clear, this is all even the somewhat positive the happy ending relationship here is still extremely fucked up. And like, in a good way, in a way that makes the story much better. But I think you're right that part of what makes it work is that, like, this really does have to be a heterosexual story, because you need the decision to accept the romance to be with somebody who also represents the oppressor.
Yep. I think that is completely correct.
And I mean, you could argue that there's still something a little bit queer about it, in that the thing that the love interest ends up doing that makes the happy ending for them possible is that he gives up his humanity to become a fellow monster.
Yes, and there's also a lot of like interpenetrating men going on.
Yes. Yes, there's also that. There's a lot of just like forcing curses into men through their mouths, and
our ending is arrived at by making men into the subjects of violation.
Yes.
And possession and sort of this fragmenting.
Plus cutting off his sword hand.
And castration.
Which is definitely, yes, a symbolic emasculation right there.
So he's made into a person that she's able to love and trust by being divorced
by being
from
emasculate, yes. From like all of his forms of privilege.
Exactly. His original male body, his sword hand, etc., etc. And he's also got like some fragment of this like horrible snake beast that she made out of resentment living in him.
And centipedes, and I do really like the curse that's just created by dumping a bunch of poisonous creatures in a jar.
Yeah. As far as like, why should you read this story, which we also sort of abandoned in our headlong rush to get on with it today.
We can go back and add that in later. Or not. So yeah, why should you read this story?
You should read the story partially because all of the images in it are very beautiful and rich.
Yeah, no, it's got great imagery.
Yeah, no, this is a dense poetic stew of a story, and all of the nasty things that happen feel very visceral. If that sounds like a good thing to you,
yes,
it really makes you feel its alienation and horror.
Yeah, and yet it doesn't, like, sometimes gory, like, it's not gory, weirdly. It manages to sort of feel, alienating and horrifying, but it doesn't dwell, and even, like, when there's cannibalism going on, I don't know, it doesn't feel like, it's not dwelling on the goriness of the imagery. I think a lot of it is more sort of dwelling on the experiences of, like, the emotional experiences of just being in this world. So it doesn't, I don't know, it didn't feel as much like sort of shock horror as some things that I've read.
Yeah, now we're in a sort of, the setting is like, miserable, awful Japan, but it's still very much Japan, like, and when I say Japan in this case, I mean like everything is aestheticized. There is something like beautiful about eating the remains of this John in the alley behind the whorehouse. The cursed items are all very finely wrought and pretty. The daggers and the
Well, except for the jar full of centipedes and spiders and snakes and stuff, poisonous creatures. But even that, I don't know. There's something about the writing style that just really like makes you imagine everything has really nice lighting.
Yeah, there's a certain delicate aestheticism to all of the horror, and I think that's a good reason to. Another reason to read it is that it's interesting to try to delve into like how much of what our narrator, who talks a big game about how as a demon she's disgusted by the very idea that humans could be interesting to her or might have any position of control over her because she's she's racist against humans in addition to everything else. How how many layers of like self-protecting delusion she's on at any given time. Like, I think that her memory about the death of the man that she loves is largely like fictionalized. That's just my take.
Where she dumps him and then goes after him and finds that he's been eaten by a bear.
Exactly.
Yeah, that strikes me as, some sort of elaborate lie she has created for herself.
Yeah. And I like the way that the story opens and closes with two versions of the same scene, which are completely different.
Yes, it's a very well constructed story, despite the fact that the way that it jumps around and between past and present, and the way that it is so clear that the narrator is often lying to you, does make it hard to follow at points. But despite that, the construction is quite good, I think.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely little poetic tangle, and it's fun to try to tease out what is actually happening. The other sort of interesting, unreliable part is that, as far as I'm aware, when you think about a folktale like this, because it's the title of the story is Another Girl Under the Iron Bell, right? Meaning that we're going to do another take on The Girl Under the Iron Bell.
Yes.
And I'm not familiar with I'm not steeped in the source material here, but looking up the original story, it's like, in the original story, it's not the girl who dies under the iron bell, it's the guy. The monk is roasted to death under the iron bell, because the woman represents desire, and the dangers of desire. And the story is more about whether the monk is led into temptation or not.
Mm-hmm.
And the various versions of it are whether he was initially led into temptation and then tried to reject her, but she pursued him, and so on and so on and so on. But this is one of those folktale retellings where we are very much decentering the male character. But our character goes with that to the extent where she becomes the victim of the story, which she very much wasn't in the original version.
Well, the thing is that is, according to our unreliable narrator, that is the version of the story that is told to her. So the question is she making herself into the victim, or was Ryunosuke making her into the victim?
Right. Was he trying to escape the fate that, awaited him, as in the consummation of this narrative by forcing that upon her?
Of course, he's an executioner, which is kind of the opposite of a monk.
Well, men would like to think of themselves as monks, surely. When you hear Buddhist monk, what do you think of? I think of the Mad Monks of Mount Hiei, who were a warrior caste who controlled politics in Edo until they were wiped out by Oda Nobunaga. No religion has a monopoly on violence or nonviolence. Our actual monk character doesn't seem to really care about her very much.
Except for as a useful tool, yes.
Right.
And yet, he's the one who ends up being permadead at the end, so... Yeah, in the end, we get to a degree, we get the true ending of the story, which is the monk dies as a result of the monster. It's just not it's just not the one who has any desire for the monster.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it is sort of interesting to see like a folktale adaptation that takes what I think are like the sort of the deep folk, um, connotations of the original and just drowns it all um, in like this sea of anger and resentment and self-justifying delusions and murderous intent. And the but ends up having exactly the same like moral of the story that the original did, which is women are scary, look out.
To be fair, men are also scary in this story. I think
Yes.
one of the things that the story does very well is, in general, I think that a good unreliable narrator story really lives or dies by the charisma of its narrator. And this one, you really do, I think it is definitely possible to, even while you're not trusting her, at least I hope you the reader are not trusting her, but you still end up wanting to sympathize with her. And part of this is because all the men in the story are awful. But also just, she's funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, she's engaging and charismatic enough that she does a fairly good job of selling you on her retelling of the story, which has been remade to make her and people like her into the victim.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
While still having her be monstrous and powerful. Like, it's great to have a story where, okay, I'm the victim, even as, she's going around killing everyone around her, and including eventually the one person who had managed to stop her, or to stop her from killing randomly and make her only kill the people he wants to kill.
You see stories like this, right? Where it's like you have the character who is the murderer or who does the bad things, and then you get the why it happened, what made them that way.
Right.
And, there's plenty of stories where that's the villain, but we have a number of stories where that's the hero. And there's always a gradation as to how much the reader is supposed to buy that as an excuse.
Right.
And I think this is an interesting one where it's like the narrator is absolutely 100% trying to get you to buy it. But the story itself does not want you to buy it, I think.
But still, I think the story does want you to find her somewhat sympathetic.
Yeah.
Given that, it starts with her enslavement, and we're definitely in a cultural moment where, the person being enslaved is generally the person you're supposed to root for.
No, 100%. And it's like the book does not, or the story does not want to sell the pain short. It does not want to sell the magnitude of the crimes committed against her and the magnitude of the social structures that that made those crimes possible. But it also doesn't want you to be like, okay, and so we're going to say that means that this is like she is heroic after this,
Right.
What it wants to be is like, well, see what you get, This is, can you be surprised that this is what has come out of this?
Right.
But at the same time, doing a really good job of showing how that kind of person can use their self-justification and the weaponize their own trauma to excuse whatever they do.
Yes. Including, again, just randomly murdering people in alleys. So the other thing, I guess this is a good transition to the other two stories, because all three of these stories are about sort of being under somebody else's power and the decision to go, basically to buy into that narrative or to break yourself out of it at whatever cost. And this one, the heterosexual one, is really the only one that has the main character choosing to break out of it.
Yeah, no, we've got a buffet of queer desire is a revolutionary force. Is it? Is it?
Is it? Right.
These next two stories are both very much. Are you sure about that?
Yeah, these Dixie stories are basically about the power of queer desire to co-opt you into hegemonic power. So let's go on to I'm gonna pull up and read the full title again. Abstraction is when I design giant death creatures, and attraction is when I do it for you.
It's time for abstraction as opposed to attraction, and fittingly, there are a few on-screen infractions in this one. It's mostly add and remove. There's a little bit of rough sex, and that's about it. This is a heartbreaker. This one is like so good. First of all, and also just like
so tragic.
I really admire a story that can just drop something as monumental as what our main character does at the end of the story on you, and not have it, and just like,
and not dwell on it. Just she just drops it, and because this is another first person story, she doesn't want to think about it, so she just drops it on you and then tries to focus on something else.
Yeah, it's like it's an interesting contrast with the last one, where the last one is like self-justifying through wallowing in the incident. This one is just like, oh, well,
this is the opposite.
That's a thing that happened. We're moving on. It's and I'm not. We're just like, got to keep my life going. Got to keep this ball rolling, and focusing on what just happened. What just happened, over there is not conducive to my continuing to be able to support this lifestyle.
Yeah, and I mean, to some degree, both of them are kind of justifying their actions to themselves through a victimhood narrative, but one of them is, I am a monster, and so anything I do to the people who consider me a monster is justified. And in this case, it's, well, I'm doing what I got to do to survive, and whatever cost that is, oh well. And the sort of definition of what I got to do to survive has sort of slowly grown from trying to make a living in this dystopia to keeping my girlfriend not only alive, but employed in the job that's making her very rich.
Yes, that is exactly so. Like, no, the creep of what constitutes protecting my patch is kind of one of the things that's at the core of the story. And it's funnily enough, it is also reflected in the way that Fiona, our main character, talks about her past, because there's all of these little allusions to how poor her family was. But at no point does Fiona say, we were so poor, so it's very important for me to not be poor again. We were very poor, so it is like, so that justifies in some way or explains my actions here.
No, in fact, her self-justification to us is always, well, I'm just an artist.
Exactly. No, it's like Fiona is not willing to think about herself in terms of where she exists in the structure of the society in economic terms. What Fiona really wants is to have a normal job in the creative industry.
Yes.
And as that, and he tugging one's collar, as that becomes less and less possible to do without making massive, without making massive moral compromises.
Right. Well, I thought that it was a great timing to read this story, given that several of the previous episodes you've sort of reflected on the appeal of selling out and how much you kind of wish you could do it. And I mean, yes, this one's sort of dramatizing the costs of selling out, but it points out that the problem with selling out isn't that, oh, you're giving up some sort of mythical artistic integrity. It's that there can be actual costs to who you are as a person to make the sacrifices you need to make to actually have a career in these industries.
Yes, this is correct.
Or just to succeed in this dystopian society, because Fiona is also she's an artist in this, but she's also something of a programmer. Her story is also kind of the story of people who are like, oh, I just write code.
Yeah.
Including, that's what the abstraction is, right? She mentions the old grognards who are like, back in my day, we had to actually figure out how biologically how these giant monsters worked. And now you just doodle them and the AI processes it for you.
Yeah, no, she's a prompt engineer in this society, where what being a prompt engineer means is that you tell the computer what horrible monsters to make so that the hero mecha pilots can go out and fight them, thus creating the entertainment industry that keeps this world distracted from the fact that they're creating a massive ecological catastrophe and that everybody is shut in this box and there's no sky, and every citizen of this planet is an indentured servitude to the corporation, and so on and so on. It's a pretty heavy-handed metaphor.
It's very much but it is like it's very much sort of anti-cyberpunk, or cyberpunk, but without the actually getting to rebel part.
Yes. No. She makes Mongos. And Mongo.
Right, I love that the horrible death creatures that, our mecha pilots are fighting off have such a dumb name.
Yeah. Tragically unable to get Mongo only pawn in Game of Life off in time. You can never make a jingle based on Blazing Saddles in this day and age.
Well, just tossing out random fun things, I do enjoy that the love interest is a MILF. Or is, it's sort of that part of what makes her so attractive to Fiona is that she's like the one pilot who isn't trying desperately to look younger than she is. I mean, they still airbrush her when in all of her videos and posters, but she's the one who looks a little bit natural, and this sort of gives her this extra appeal, and I think also sets her up to be sympathetic to us, the reader, before we get to know her, which is good because she's kind of an awful person.
Oh yeah.
But so it's good to set her up so that we have some reason to, to see her as being interesting and different before we find out how much she isn't. I think that does a good job of helping sell us on like Fiona being into her.
Right. The sort of the metaphor that came to my mind, because of course it did, is like, this is a kid who grew up watching Hulk Hogan, and now gets to date Hulk Hogan,
right.
Gets to sleep with Hulk Hogan, but at the cost of propping up a professional wrestling industry that is, morally compromised in 20 million different ways, from, sexually abusing and trafficking women and young boys to, partnering with the Saudi government to putting people's bodies through, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And no, the thing about her being old, in addition to making us possibly sympathetic to her before the true depths of what a, shallow and selfish person she is comes into focus, is that in that she also represents the ways in which our artist interfaced with this creative industry when she was a child.
Right.
When she was an uncritical child. It's like being it's also another and perhaps more distressing metaphor is that she is now a Disney adult, in the sense that she is sleeping with Donald or something, she's not been able to move on past her conceptions of what, being in this industry that she loved and that she desperately wanted to be a part of when she was a child. She's not been able to take on any of the new information that she's gotten as an adult about the costs of that industry, and about how it actually works, and about how it chews people up and spits them out and uses people precisely because they want so badly and on such a deep, young level to be a part of it. She's not able to integrate any of that, whereas her sister is.
Well, the thing is, I think Fiona understands it. She's just made the decision to not care.
Right. No, I mean, it's not that she doesn't understand. Yeah, it's not that she doesn't understand it. It's that the libidinal appeal, as is represented in this case by her desire to fuck this hot lesbian MILF,
right,
is strong enough that it overshadows everything, or at least, again, that's how she explains it to herself. And the fear of being poor again is something that just hangs around on the edge. and maybe plays a much, much larger part of it in this than she's willing to admit even to herself.
Yeah, I think so. And you're right that she doesn't seem to understand, she doesn't seem to grasp that her sister, that like finding out the cost of these things that they were into as kids has ruined it for her sister. Like she keeps trying to tell her sister, yeah, but this is what we were into as kids.
Yeah, it's an interesting one
And
because it coexists. It's both like appealing to what they're into as kids and also isn't being upset about this very childish, you know?
right, I mean, because there's also the, well, okay, but which one of us is actually paying for the electricity in our apartment?
Yeah, like why can't you grow up and accept the accept the rules of the world that we are living in and use this children's entertainment as a way to, you know, to make swallowing that pill less difficult for you. It's very interesting the way that it gets you coming and going there. It's like, do take your treats. Complaining about your treats is childish. You need to eat your treats. Don't ask where the treats are coming from.
Yeah, well, but also, I mean, at some point, like this, the story is devastating partly because at the end, Fiona still has her career and her girlfriend, and Alyssa, the sister, is dead.
Yes.
And part of this is because of the decisions Fiona makes, but part of this is also Fiona's kind of right. Like, how much are you able to fight against the system?
Right. And it's like it's one of those things where it's like, you know, speaking of how much Fiona understands, you know, like when Fiona, it's like this decision that Fiona makes was the decision that she was always going to make because on some level she understood in maybe a way that her sister didn't. Like, no, this is actually these are the stakes of the world that we're living in, you know?
Right. And that they are life and death.
And
And
like you, by choosing to be, you know, countercultural or to reject this in a way that actually impacts your prospects in your life, you are signing yourself up for, you know, at best a life of poverty and at worst, you know, destruction.
Yeah.
So under
So,
those
like,
circumstances, doesn't it make more sense for me personally to get the hot lesbian girlfriend and, you know, contribute actively to the thing that's destroying the planet because, you know, the alternative is what you're doing.
yeah. So I guess I like this story because it's, it manages, for a variety of reasons, but it manages to be such a, you know, devastating skewering of everybody who's, sort of shrugged and gone, well, no, no ethical consumerism under capitalism, so I can do whatever I want. But also being like, but on the other hand, what can you as an individual do? Maybe you should just shrug and be that person. It doesn't, it's not didactic. It's just
No.
sort of pointing out that how horrible reality is.
Hey, what are your
But I
folks?
mean, right? But I mean, like, there's not really a point at which anybody could have. This is a good tragedy because, like, what could people have done differently? I mean, Alyssa, I don't think it was really from what little we see of Alyssa. I don't know how much it is in her nature to, once she realizes that they are destroying the planet around her and forcing everyone to live in poverty, for her to just go along with this and mooch. But also, at no point do any of the people who kill her make the irrational decision.
Yeah, it really depends on what the rational decision is at any given moment. And like, why don't we get the nice things? Why don't we get the revolution? It's because there's a certain tipping point, the number of people who are willing to throw their lives away for justice. And if you don't hit that tipping point, that's a lot of lives that just got thrown away for nothing.
Right. And are you lining up to be the one to throw your life away, not knowing whether or not this is actually going to succeed?
Is revolution right for you? Do you have moral qualms? Don't be ashamed to tell. Did our national mythologizing work too well? And you can't grow up and put aside those childish things. Overly scrupulous, you might have OCD. Go and see a doctor and get back to me. Or is it faith for your mental health? You want to follow something bigger than yourself, and being patriotic isn't good enough. Improve your self-esteem, you should pursue a dream. We have a wide variety available. If it's God who disapproves, I invite you to peruse this list of local branches of your church of choice. All are audible explanations, read the goodness of the nations, and they're all polite campaigners for reform. Or if you're secular, there's charities that might be better for your needs. Have you considered doing things with dogs? So many shelter pups. Everybody needs a hobby. Or are you desperate? Are there a lot of you? We tried to keep you happy back when we had to, and your life is filled with more than all the nothing you'll achieve by fighting back. Or are you that obsessed? Honestly, you sound a bit depressed. Clearly, the answer is to pick a competing large nation that you don't live in and stand it on social media.
Because that is the other thing about revolutions, is that they need, fanatics like Alyssa. I mean, Alyssa did betray her sister. She stole her sister's login information. Part of why Fiona betrays Alyssa to the, sells her out to the cops is because otherwise she's at risk of losing her job and also of her girlfriend dying. They're basically about ready to kill her girlfriend off, or possibly for her girlfriend just to, marry a guy and settle down. I do like that Fiona manages to sort of build in the life or death stakes of everything, while also making it clear that there are other options that aren't quite so dramatic. But, Alyssa put her sister in this position where she's at risk of losing the, security and okay life that she's fought so hard to get and sold already so much of herself to get. And that is part of the thing also about revolutions, right? Is that you actually they also have a human cost, and the kind of people who do them are the kind of people who are willing to sell out their friends and family, and to take their friends and family down with them.
Yeah, 100%.
So great. The story, incredibly depressing, but quite enjoyable.
Really beautifully done. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Before we move on, how do you feel about this style of titling? I find it very charming in punk rock.
Yeah, no, I liked it. I think that if everybody were doing it, it'd be annoying. But for one thing, it's it got me to read the story, so good job. Mm-hmm. I thought also it's actually great because the title is absolutely Fiona trying to sell us on her narrative.
Yes. No,
right?
It's very good.
Because this is, as you pointed out, this is actually at its heart about Fiona's, fear of falling back into poverty. But she has turned this into a combination of a philosophical, rumination on what does abstraction mean in my current industry, and also the idea that she's doing all of this for love.
Perfect. Yeah. No, really great title. I want to read more by this author.
Absolutely.
And speaking of reading more by this author.
Speaking of authors that we like to read more of,
yes.
Podcast favorite, When You Lee's The Name Zia.
Onto The Name Zia. Content warnings for this one. Violence, murder, a little bit of eating gross things, and body horror. And that's Zia, not Zia.
I don't know.
I mean, who knows?
I'm just reading it like it's pinyin, so.
Right. We're in metaphorical East Asia here rather than actual East Asia, so who knows? But
metaphorical broader Asia.
Metaphorical there's metaphorical the hinterland, which is Asia coded, and metaphorical the imperial center, which is Europe coded. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But crucially, it's Europe coded in that it is what a Final Fantasy JRPG setting of Europe is, with
Yes.
its airships and its potion shops.
Yes.
Which is such a wonderful choice to have made, can I just say, for so many reasons.
Including that it really like sells you on the wonder of the Imperial Metropole in a way that making it more historically accurate wouldn't at this point in our cultural moment.
Right. It's like this is another story about going to Oxford. We've done a number of stories about, about either, with a certain number of magical metaphors tacked on a bright young person from East Asia or from South Asia or from, anywhere that is in the distant lands, going to Oxford or a similar school, and what that means. And this is one of them. But because our hero is not interested in questioning what is going on, and is not going to end up being one of those persons who, throws their life away for justice, we get to see perhaps the most candy-colored Oxford imaginable.
Yes.
But
like, I think that's really useful in a way, because a lot of these stories don't necessarily convey the appeal. And I think that if you're not conveying the appeal of the Metropole, then the story often ends up falling flat, because it means that the decision feels too easy.
Yes, 100%.
But in this one, you really, this one, even more than Fiona's decision in Abstraction, you really understand what's at stake and why Diaz makes the decisions that she makes. And it's part of it's the wonder, and part of it is also that this is a chance to save her family.
Yeah, no, it really goes all in on all of the reasons why her continuing to play along is a much better idea for her personally than any other choice that is available to her. Why she's able to make her peace with that, and boy, does she get so many treats.
Yes, she gets the hot Imperial girlfriend. She gets, the straight A's, the really good job. She gets, the food and to be on airships.
Yeah, no, we're really leaning into, what makes the people who are part of that upper class in these countries who, who join in wholeheartedly with the Imperial project. Why do that? Why sell out your people? And
yes, to be fair, I think that this is a little more complicated, right? Because Zia's not from the Imperial class. She has a two-character name, right. Because her family had to. I mean, in some ways, it's Oxford. It's also, the Boxer indemnities, right? Like, it's also the idea of, we've reached the point where the Metropole is deciding that they are going to benevolently offer this chance. So it isn't just the elites anymore. Now it's a chance to uplift the sort of struggling middle class. Like Zia's family are middle class, right? They have to sell their names, but they only have to sell three-fifths of her name.
Right.
She shows up with at least some name left, even if, unfortunately, due to unlucky coincidence, it's like the not so useful parts.
Well, I mean, she kept the one that means determination.
Right.
And we all know what that means.
Right.
She kept the one that means that she's not going to let any of these details, like how many of her fellow uplifted middle or lower middle class kids who have been, sent to school as part of this social experiment have gone insane / killed themselves / killed other people / disappeared.
And note that the ones who really break tend to be the ones who are even poorer.
Exactly, the ones with no name left.
She's precarious enough that she's willing to ignore everything and sell people out, and work super super hard, right? But she has enough to lose, but because of that, that's part of why she's able to do better than the ones who sold their entire name to be here.
Right. It's sort of a Goldilocks zone almost of like,
Yeah.
this is exactly where the bootstrapping narrative makes sense and is really compelling. Like right here. If you're any poorer, it's a joke. And if you're any richer, it's another thing entirely.
Right.
It's something. It's so beautifully done. And we haven't even really gotten to the to the white people be tattooing kanji on themselves.
Right. Right. Like also the literal tattooing of kanji, and also the ones where like they're just picking based on how it looks good. So there's one who's tattooing something with like the horse radical, that's just that just means something about horsemanship, and she's going to be like an airship pilot or possibly a middle manager when she grows up. Like she doesn't need horseback riding.
Yeah, no, I mean this is one of those like metaphors that are so like clanging that it almost goes around the other side and becomes like we're not subtle, but the real like genius of this is like how thoroughly and deeply it works and on how many levels it works once you get past like the sort of the surface joke of it.
Yeah. And I mean, also just there's so many good details here, like the economics of first you understand just how much selling each name will do for her. Mm-hmm. Right? It's that she could sell all of them to get about 10 years worth of income for her family, and instead she's going to sell enough to get to almost pay her tuition, but not quite.
Right. It's a calculated risk, and she better not screw this up because
then she sold her names for nothing.
Right. There's no other chance at the end of that.
Right.
You better get that good job.
Yeah.
Which is part of the reason why, like, turning around and trying to resist the system or even practicing entryism doesn't even occur to her, basically, over the course of the story, is because, like, there is too much to lose here.
Right. And then when she gets to the point where she's finding out, where she sees that everybody go to the market and buy, these sold names, and learns that no, actually the names aren't being sent to a monastery for, enlightenment purposes. They're just being sold to white kids. But you see the markup. They're charging so much more for an individual name. They're charging as much for one name as she got for all three.
And then, but that's not important because this is still within like luxury spending money for these kids.
Right. This is still, they're, oh, you got an A on, you got straight A's. So we're going to give you this, like, we're going to let you buy this piece of another person's soul. While one of the people who's had to sell off 3/5 of her soul is just sort of standing there watching them go, oh yeah, I kind of regret getting this last one.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to swap?
Right.
I love how like the casualness of how they swap names, like on a whim, of how they sort of peel off the tattoos and give them to each other it's like this is a incredibly casual decision for them, but it determines which one of them ends up getting murdered.
Right.
Which is like, again, really hammering it. It's like, this means one thing for you and one thing for them. And it's a completely different universe, both in terms of the monetary value, the social value, the desperation of it. But it may end up having serious consequences for you in ways that you have not predicted. Right. When you're dealing with these, these symbols and these touchstones that are like so a universe's worth of difference apart in how like you are even capable of conceiving them. And it's like even the sympathetic, white girlfriend here cannot really understand what is going on.
Right. And I like that she's she's a genuinely sympathetic white girlfriend, right? Like she's, isn't she the one who's like, no, you can't ask people what their missing names are. And
Right.
like, she's trying. She's not trying super hard, but like, she's not even being casually cruel in that sort of, oh, I didn't care enough about your culture to look into it. Except when she's, slapping on bits of when she's slapping on other people's names as sort of temporary tattoos. But like, there's nothing that she's saying with her words that where you can just like dismiss her as, oh, well, you should just dump her.
No, she's like a 19 or 20-year-old rich white liberal, and is like the best case scenario, for
Right,
that.
exactly, like she's the best case scenario, at least especially like of this era, right? I mean,
Right.
she's not performatively checking her privilege, but but that's fine because also part of what the girlfriend exists to be is part of the reward system that Zia's buying into, and so she has to be a little bit oblivious because otherwise she's not part of the rewards of having made it. Part of the rewards of having made it are that you get your girlfriend who doesn't understand what you had to sacrifice.
It's not in the text that the society Zia is buying into is less homophobic than the society she's coming from, but we can make some connections. Speaking of like in-group, out-group stuff, like one of my favorite little bits in it is when another person who's a part of their like clade, because when you go into the school, you do this like eating a fisheye ritual that marks you as part of a particular like dorm house, basically.
Yeah.
And one of the kids, who eventually ends up losing it and killing people, is part of their clade, and like he's one of the ones with no name left, and that sort of the way that they're like when he's having trouble, and the rest of the kids are like, yeah, well, a lot of kids are having trouble, particularly, whatever. And one of the bros goes, yeah, but it's different because he's one of ours.
Right.
Like because he went through that fish ritual with them, like this isn't like, this story isn't you'll never belong, even though it could very easily have been that story. It's that they are in fact offering you a certain degree of belonging. There isn't like a impenetrable racial barrier here. There's probably an impenetrable racial barrier in a lot of ways.
Right. And like,
but
there's still a lot of othering, but at the same time they really are offering a genuine belonging. Like, the thing, even at the end when Zia is sort of grasping with the tragedy of her parents have taken out a big loan to buy back one of her names, and and she can't like put it back on, which is also great because if she'd really made it, she could just slap it back on, right? But she's stuck in this thing where she's made it but she knows the costs, and so she can't just take it back. But like, it really has to have been that success. And part of that is that she's accepted enough that, and that also that even River would be accepted enough, assuming, his grades were good enough. Because because a lot of the kids, the worst consequences are, okay, they're not going to get to buy a fancy magical tattoo name, if they get C's or whatever. But, but also, I like that, speaking of, you get to see how how the various kids are, abusing various prescription drugs.
Of course.
Right. And that again, that this is hitting the outsider kids the worst, but it's also, but everyone, they're not the only ones abusing stimulants.
Right. This is the classic, like, college thing. This has been the case forever, where it's like, you go to college and the culture is that you're expected to take risks and, be young, because that's part of the fun of it all, and part of the sort of bonding and individuation that you get. And for those kids who are, for the scholarship kids of the world, in, on whatever valence that is, there is a big, yawn where it's like, yeah, you can do that. And if I mess up, there is no coming back for me.
Right.
And that can be a very difficult one to communicate over that gap, particularly when those risky behaviors are load bearing in one way or another. When you need the drugs to be able to get through the class, or when you need to go out drinking to make the social links that you need, and so on and so on.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess part of why I think this story really resonated for me is, somebody who was pretty precarious at my elite college, was that, like, reading this story, because usually when you read stories like this, they end in either tragedy where the person's not able to keep up, or the person, decides to pursue revolution, and then that can either end successfully or tragically. But in this case, Zia makes the smart decision every single time, and it works out for her. And it's still a tragedy. But, like, you don't get that story very often. You don't get the story of, oh no, you actually did. You did it. You made it. You did, you made the decision that the reader, rooting for you to be okay, goes, oh, this is the logical decision.
Mm-hmm.
Except possibly selling out River, which doesn't really matter either way. Like, does it matter or not? I don't know. I mean, but also, does it matter or not for whether, like, River was probably not going to survive even if she didn't shout for him.
Yeah, it's not quite the same decision that the hero of Abstraction Attraction makes.
Right.
Because the hero of Abstraction Attraction, like, thinks about that and does it deliberately, even if she's doesn't want to dwell on it. Whereas this is showing that is her instinct in that moment.
Right, exactly. Like, that is, Zia has picked her side, and she has become a certain kind of person.
And she was always that kind of person.
Right.
She has the right kind of personality. She, that's what Zia, the name Zia in the title is like. This is that determination and, ability to go with the flow, and to be resilient that allows you to be one of the ones who makes it. That combination of factors, like, the magic stuff in her name is not actually important to what she wants to become. And so what has she lost? And there is a wide variety of answers to that question. What has she lost? And the story isn't interested in saying how much that is worth exactly. Just like there was something lost. What does that mean?
Right.
And it's permanent.
Yeah. And it's permanent. And part of why it doesn't work, though, part of why getting, one of her missing names back doesn't work isn't because, oh, I'm too alienated from my culture to take it back. It's also, it's Zia has, like, all of these accomplishments have been done under the name of Zia. Like, to some degree, taking back that lost part of herself is denying the person that she has shaped herself into, who she's actually proud of. She's gotten a girlfriend out of it, and all of these, and a job offer, and all of these are under this name.
Yeah, and this brings me to a thing that I want to mention before we end, which is the ways in which the story is similar to When They Burned the Butterfly, both in terms of, like, tattoo magic, basically, but also the what here is racial. What does it mean that the people from Fantasy Asia get magic at birth from these tattoos? And what does it mean then when having those qualities is incompatible with her living as this successful person in the metropole, that to such an extent where she can't take back her birthright? And it's like, what exactly are we positing that birthright is here? Is sort of a question that I'm interested in asking, both of this story and of When They Burn the Butterfly. Like, is it the ability to have this kind of belief? Is it the ability, or is it like qualities that I, as a person who was born and raised in the metropole, simply cannot understand, and have to view through this lens of magic? I don't have an answer to this, but it seems like a preoccupation that the author has.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And there's definitely this question, and also I think there's this question of how much of it is transferable.
Yeah, and the answer is like not the important parts. You know, you're even if you like go to college and study it, you're never really going to understand this, white boy.
Well, but the thing is that it's not just, again, if we're bringing butterfly into the conversation, then it isn't. Then I would say that these questions aren't just about race, because we also see this when everybody is ethnically Chinese, and we still see this idea of you can't take somebody else's belief system and simply transplant it into your own.
Yeah, no, I don't think that there's actually like a blood element here. I think it is
Right. I think like it's, I think that it's cultural, but also some of this question is how much of this is birthright and how much of this is like actually being able to buy into a complete system. And we don't see any outsiders buying into the Angza system, because that's not this kind of story. We do in Butterfly see the Filipina girl buying into the shapeshifter cult and doing great. So I think that I think you're right that these seem to be, preoccupations of the author, but they're not ones that she's giving us an obvious answer to, which I like. I think that they're more just sort of trying to poke at these questions from a bunch of different angles and a bunch of different metaphorical tools, and seeing what kinds of thoughts and feelings arise as a result. Which is why I'm really, going to continue to look forward to her work.
I agree. I actually had this thought where it's like I wanted this story to be longer.
Yeah, I mean, I would have read an entire novel about Zia, honestly.
I mean, in part just because the setting is so effectively charming, and
Right.
I love we're doing Final Fantasy VI airship world, but we're being kind of sarcastic with it.
Right.
Setting building and all of this, but like I think that you can't get a whole novel out of it if Zia remains Zia.
Right. Yes,
like
that is right.
It's clear that she's made her decision.
Right. Yeah. So we could not get a full novel out of Zia. I would read another novel in this setting, or alternately, if Zia makes other choices. But I think the story
if it's one of those things where maybe like in the second and third parts maybe we get 3 students, and the next students coming up are like have to react to Zia as an authority figure of their race in this world, as they make different decisions, or as we iterate on the kinds of decisions that they can make. And so
yes,
and now I'm just writing fan fiction, so
right. Yes, which I think really does speak to the quality of like the world building and like just of getting us really attached to these characters and this setting. So yes, I guess moral of the story is I want to see more from all 3 of these authors, because they're all doing very interesting things. And so thank you, Lee, for bringing them to our attention.
Thank you, Lee. And thank you for listening to this. I'm going to try to rejoint this a little bit in editing.
Yes. Should we just do and then I guess you can edit back in. Should we do a rundown of content warnings? Because there actually are some.
I think that I could do it. I can just list them off in
great.
in jingle form before we get to each one.
Great.
And but yeah, we should end this recording at this point.
Yep. All right.
Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.